They first arrived there as traders via the Roman-Indian trade system, which brought Jewish communities to Arabia. Scattered along the Malabar coast, these Cochin Jews maintained close ties with Jewish communities to the west and were allowed to live freely by the local rulers, who, as Hindu polytheists, tended not to view foreign religions as a threat to their own.
How did Jews end up in India? How do you speak so many Indian languages? What are your traditions? What do you eat? Who do you worship? Well, hold on. Today we're going to be going back in history and I'm going to tell you all about where I come from and where my ancestors came from. But before that, Namaskar, Shalom and welcome. My name is Ravital Moses, aka Moses in Israel, your favorite Indian Jew born and raised in India and now living in Israel. And my goal is to bridge India and Israel one video at a time. And today I'm going to tell you where I came from. So let's go.
In India, two of the biggest were the Cochin Jews and B'nai Israel. Some historians believe that Jews began living in India as far back as the 1st century CE. They first arrived there as traders via the Roman-Indian trade system, which brought Jewish communities to Arabia. Scattered along the Malabar coast, these Cochin Jews maintained close ties with Jewish communities to the west and were allowed to live freely by the local rulers, who, as Hindu polytheists, tended not to view foreign religions as a threat to their own. After all, what's one more god on top of an entire pantheon?
All right, let's hold on for a second. There's so much information. All right, so there were traders that came to India and then they settled at the Malabar coast and that's how they came to Cochin. If you guys have been to Cochin, which is in Kerala, there is something called the Jew town and there is one of the oldest synagogues called the Pardesi synagogue. Now unfortunately the community they made aliyah, they came to Israel and there are hardly any Jews that are left in Kochi or Cochin. So the synagogue is, I wouldn't say operational for Shabbat prayers, or maybe they do when they have Jews and Israelis that are traveling and they want to come for Shabbat. That's when they actually do it. Actually, I'm not very sure because it's been a couple of years since I've actually visited the Pardesi synagogue. But what I want to say is that there was a thriving community of Cochini Jews and from what I understand, in the 1980s, a lot of the Cochini Jews came to Israel because they felt like it was about time to come back to the homeland. You know, since years, Jews have been in exile and have been living in the diaspora. And of course, India being India, it made a safe place for the Jews of India. Of course, there are different communities. I come from the Beni Israeli community and we're going to be talking about it in a few minutes, but we're talking about the Cochini Jews. But my point being that India has created a safe space for a lot of the minorities, and Jews being one of the minorities, were living there and thriving. And, you know, there is a Jew town if you've been to, although I didn't like the way he said, like, one second, there was this comment or this line that was said that I didn't really like. So let's go through that again.
Polytheists tended not to view foreign religions as a threat to their own. After all, what's one more god on top of an entire pantheon?
What does that mean? I don't like the way this was said. Listen, I grew up in India, all right? And with my conversations that I've had with Jews from all around the world, from the West specifically, they talk about anti-Semitism and how there have been instances where they had to hide their Jewish identity and have had experiences where people were not nice to them, people have been violent. Now, because I'm born and raised there and I have immense respect for India, I respect the Hindu culture. I also thoroughly love it. I'm born and raised in two cultures, like you can see. You'll also see a lot of my videos, see the cultural hybrid. But I mean, listen, I know this was made out of love and, you know, education, but what do you mean adding another religion on top of, you know, the plethora of gods that they have? I know Judaism is monotheistic and Hinduism is polytheistic, but I would never disrespect Hinduism, there's a certain faith, and there are people that follow it, and I extremely respect it. So I wouldn't say that. I want to say that Hinduism or the Hindu culture has been very open to having minorities in the country because of the way it is. Okay. I don't take this BS. The line that was said in this, I completely disagree with that.
To tradition, an additional group of Jewish traders were shipwrecked on the coast of Maharashtra and ultimately settled there, where they became known as the Bnei Israel. Their relative isolation caused their religious practices to drift. Only beginning in the 16th century did they re-engage with the wider Jewish world. Centuries later, during the early modern period, crypto-Jewish traders from group, and it prohibited Israel.
All right. Let's talk about this for a second. The community that I come from, the Beni Israeli, extremely Maharashtrian. You'll see us. Let's talk about a few things. Now, they said that my ancestors traveled to, actually, you know what? They had fled the Middle East because of the destruction of the Second Temple, and the ship, they were sailing in a ship, and the ship wrecked near the western coast of Maharashtra, and they ended up settling in a small village called Naugao. And then, of course, as the community grew, you know how it is in the Maharashtrian culture, also like across India, of course, but like the village that you belong to, you get that as your surname. So my surname is Kehimkar. We have Maharashtrian surnames. Thank you very much, because I'm educating you. So my ancestors were in Kehim. I have cousins that are like Mabgaonkars, Painkars, Nagaonkars, Divekar even, that are staying in Ahmedabad. But what I'm trying to tell you is, India took my ancestors in. That was the Beni Israeli community, and they said we had lost touch. Now, there's some explanation to do. There are few things that the community adopted to make a part of their own culture. So basically, when you go to the Beni Israeli community, you see a lot of traditions in food and stuff like that has been adopted very heavily from the Maharashtrian culture. All right. For example, number one is language. We grew up speaking Marathi. Even today, I've moved to Israel. At home, we speak Marathi. And it is not just me. A lot of the Beni Israeli community members who moved from Maharashtra or, Maharashtrian cities that moved to Israel a few years ago still speak Marathi, in spite of being integrated in Israel. So Marathi, Kolas, my brain is just switching languages. But आम्ही घरी मराठीत बोलतो, and I'm very proud to speak this language. If in this country, specifically in Israel, the Russians can speak Russian, and of course there are other the French can speak French. So an Indian Jew that comes from Maharashtra, specifically Thane, I want to speak Marathi. All right. Second is our food. All right. Ghari. Okay. When we eat, it is very specific to my household, but I know I've spoken to a lot of other friends and it is very common. My comfort food is varan bhat, batatachi bhaji. Let me say that again. Varan bhat, batatachi bhaji, lonsa, and papad. That is my comfort food. I can eat this every day for the rest of my life. All right. And then, of course, on occasions and festivals, we have something called chikacha halwa, and we have sutar feni, and we have puri. But I think it has a specific name. It's called Sat Padra Puri, because it has like those padars like you have for a sari, like the drapes, and it's like done 7 times, and we specifically eat it on very auspicious days or festivals or New Year's and stuff like that. So the food is also like heavily inspired from the Maharashtra cuisine. What else? In terms of traditions, let's say the wedding. All right. Now, if you come here, the Jewish weddings are pretty straightforward. All right. But because we're Indian Jews, we need some color and some drama and some entertainment, and of course the traditions. All right, we adopted, like I said, the traditions. So we also have the harad ceremony or the haldi ceremony. We also have the mehendi ceremony, and especially during the mehendi ceremony, in the Maharashtrian tradition, they have a very cute Mundavya. It's called Mundavya or the Sehra, right? Or is it? I don't know if it's equivalent to Sehra, but the thing that they put here and then it kind of like dangles from the side of your eye. It's called Mundavya. It's very specific to the Beni Israeli Mehendi ceremony, which is adopted from the Maharashtrian community. So because my ancestors smoothly integrated, they also made sure to adopt these traditions, and I think it's very special. So when we come to Israel and we talk about an Indian Jewish traditions, these are the traditions that we're talking about. And of course, later on, as the world became a little more accessible, there was more a strong sense of Jewish identity and faith added to as well. But yeah, I love my culture. I love where I come from. I'm obsessed with my culture.
Early modern period, crypto-Jewish traders from Portugal began fleeing to India, mostly living alongside the Cochinim. These were Jews who had been forced by the Portuguese government to conceal their Judaism. The earlier waves of migration created from trade made the region safe for those fleeing persecution in Portuguese-controlled ports. By the 19th century, Jews fleeing the rebel government in Ottoman Iraq settled in cities like Bombay and Calcutta, later spreading to many other corners of the world. Following the independence of both India.
All right, let's talk about Baghdadi Jews. They are what do you say? Baghdadi Jews, not that I'm saying that, Indian Jewish communities have contributed. Let me actually rephrase that. All the Indian Jewish communities have contributed to India in terms of tradition, economy, wealth, building the country. But Baghdadi Jews have had a special place in India, majorly. I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about. There are a lot of personalities from the Baghdadi Jewish community. Let me like take you through it. All right. So the Baghdadi Jewish community, they came from Baghdad, Iraq, and they have settled in cities like Mumbai, Kolkata, Pune. I'm not sure if they went to Ahmedabad and Delhi. I'm not sure, because I know there are a lot of Beni Israeli community members living in Ahmedabad. I still have cousins in Ahmedabad, by the way, who are Beni Israeli. But majorly Mumbai, Kolkata, and Pune. And they were deeply involved in India's textile and shipping industries. If you've heard about David Sassoon, he's kind of a legend in the community, and of course, he's very popular in the Jewish world. He was, I wouldn't say, what's the word? I'm actually forgetting, but he built a lot of hospitals, schools, docks. If you've gone to Mumbai was like old Bombay. I'm sure you might have heard of Sassoon Docks, Sassoon Library. There's Magen David Synagogue, Knesset Eliyahu. These synagogues were sort of built by him. And of course, the construction kind of like went on for years. But the contribution goes to David Sassoon and of course his ancestors as well. And I believe that after a few years, the Sassoon family moved to Singapore and London. I feel like the family is so big, so I think they split. I'm not sure. Although, if you know somebody from the Sassoon family, if you guys are in touch, can you please get them in touch with me? I would love to speak to them and get to know about their ancestry as well, because firsthand it runs in the family. So I would love. So if any of you have contacts to the Sassoon family in Singapore or London, please get them in touch with me. I would love to have them on my channel. And I mean, they have a legacy, so why not? So anyway, talking about the Baghdadi Jews, very, very, they left a really, really strong legacy even today. the architecture, or let's say these places, for years they were not in good shape because there was just nobody to take care of after the Sassoon family left. So the government has, took care of it. I think it was refurbished. Also, if you see like the Sassoon library, if you haven't watched my video, go watch it. It's on Instagram. I made a video with the Consul General of Israel, Kobi Shashani, about the Sassoon library and the Knesset Eliyahu synagogue. Beautiful. Of course, it went through a lot of reconstruction, but now that it's done and finished, it's beautiful. I think it's open to the public to go and see. You guys should definitely see. But yeah, this is the Baghdadi Jewish community.
India and Israel from British colonial control in the 1940s, most of India's 25,000 Jews steadily made Aliyah to Israel. This was not the result of any persecution, however. In many Jewish communities of Asia, an attachment to the Jewish homeland was much stronger ideologically than it was in Europe. The love of Israel had remained strong, and the opportunity to come back to the Jewish homeland after the long exile was seized by almost the entire community. Honestly, this only scratches the surface of Jewish life in India and China. Both countries have been joined by new Jewish arrivals in the 20th and 21st centuries, which continue to shape the life and history of both those countries and of Judaism itself. This is something that can be said about all Jewish communities in diaspora, but it's worth remembering that they are far more widespread and diverse than we often realize.
Beautiful. Let me take you through the Aliyah process. At the end of the video, they mentioned that the Jewish community from India made Aliyah. For those of you who don't know, Aliyah is a term used for the Jewish diaspora who's living out of Israel to be able to come to Israel and start their life from scratch, okay? Because we believe that Jews have been in exile for years, and they want to come to their homeland eventually, maybe now in 10 years, 100 years. So the Indian Jewish community, again, like there have been waves. Like in the 1980s, a lot of the Kochini Jews made Aliyah. I think in the 90s, a lot of the Beni Israelis started to make Aliyah. And then some of us who stayed in India ended up staying and, have had personal reasons to make Aliyah. Like this video said, the major reason was not anti-Semitism or persecution. It was more like you want to live a Jewish life, you want to find a Jewish partner, you want to have more opportunities, stuff like that. All right. So that's why people make Aliyah. If you ask me why, I think you know why. And if you don't, that's for another video. Or maybe I think I have spoken about this. I don't remember. Anyway, but now that we're here, I want to say that it's like bittersweet for me because I know India took my ancestors in and it's been amazing. But of course, these are dwindling numbers. We are less than 4,000 Jews left out of the 1.4 plus billion people in India. वो minority status से भी कम है, right? Because even if you need a minority status, you have a number. So we're under the minority status number. But the contributions of the Indian Jews have been they've been big and they have been implemented and everybody knows about it. So there has been a mutual love between India and Israel because, of course, India kept the Jews safe and Jews have been able to contribute to the society and the economy. So yeah, that's where I come from. Hopefully in the coming videos, we can talk about traditions and culture and my personal experience. But that's it for today. Go ahead, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.